How strong is Fuyuka's ultimate build? In my last video covering the skill build, I mentioned that her ultimate is never a DPS loss, even when not speccing into it. So let's see how strong it is if you do. I've been working on upgrading the calculator's logic to handle burst scenarios, where you line up your buffs and unload your biggest damage under the boss's break. And with this, we can now get some accurate values for just how crazy the burst can get. Let's start out with a comparison between the ultimate build and skill build. In terms of raw damage, the ultimate build deals an average of 24% more damage in a 3-minute battle. Since the damage is packed in a short burst, this means that there is also more high score potential if you hit a particularly lucky run with crits. This is a double-edged sword, because it means on a bad or unlucky run, you can lose a significant amount of damage. Furthermore, because of the strict timing required to optimize the burst damage, it's very non-auto-friendly. Additionally, this comp has the most investment requirement, and will need charge efficiency emblems to properly function. However, for the current iteration of boss splits, you will get a huge amount of free energy and double ultimate damage, so you can taste the power right now with less of the downsides. Now let's check what changed with the potential builds. For cores, Kitty Punch and Multi-Shot provide some good generic damage, but more importantly, will give more overall energy generation. Iron Fist Ball and Peak Condition are the two most important potentials in this build, giving massive amounts of ultimate damage. Finishing Blow is the strongest generic buff to take, and then Bold Challenge or Swirling Counterattack are other good generic buffs to consider, with Bold Challenge being for boss content and Swirling Counterattack otherwise. 1 point in Combo Punch is suggested to increase energy gain. This is Fuyuka's damage profile in the team setting. Most of her damage is going to be coming from her ultimate casts, with a small chunk of skill and auto attack damage in the mix. Let's see how the rest of the team's potentials have changed. Flora's build is very similar to that of the skill build, except with one new potential taking priority over the rest: Lethal Inferno. This is a damage taken debuff that has a very low uptime, but when synced with your burst, is extremely powerful. Visual impact is a low priority in this build, as this is not guaranteed to have full uptime during your ult. Chixia's build is exactly the same as before, with one extremely important note. After I did like 3 hours of debugging on stream, I found out that Prayer of Raging Flame doesn't exactly work as advertised. The way it actually works is that it grants 1 stack per unique targeted hits, meaning that on a boss, you'll only ever gain 1 stack, making it very mediocre to take. However, this is still absolutely insanely powerful in content like Menace Arena, so make sure to prioritize it in that case. With this build, skill timing is extremely important. We want to maximize the damage across Fuyuka's ultimate, which lasts around 10 seconds with Iron Fist Ball. To do this, lead with Flora's ultimate. Use Chixia's skill 2 seconds later. As soon as you see Flora's debuff counter on the boss go to 7, use her skill along with Fuyuka's ultimate. This allows you to get Flora's full buff up time, as well as the full stack of minions from Chixia up for the initial part of the burst, where peak condition has the full amount of stacks. Using Chixia's skill a little later can get a higher average buff that will also cover the final hit of the ultimate, which has the highest MV, but this is counterbalanced by peak condition. Both methods have a similar output, but the front-loading method has a higher potential to score higher by concentrating all the focus into the initial hits. You can hit some really big crits here. Fuyuka's talents benefit her burst much more than her average DPS, so each of her talents is a bit more impactful than in the skill build. For just over a 50% expected increase between talents 0 and 5. Emblem priorities are mostly similar to that of the skill build, except focusing on ultimate related lines instead of skill lines. More importantly, you'll also want to get charge efficiency on the level 70 and 80 emblems. For level 70, get pen, crit rate, ultimate crit rate, and charge efficiency. For level 80, get crit rate, ultimate levels, a second line of pen, and then more charge efficiency. For level 90, peak condition plus 3 is slightly preferred over Iron Fist and finishing blow levels, which are very similar. Finish off with some element damage. For discs, the value of the 5 stars are all very close to each other. Her signature has a very average performance, due to it providing mostly auto damage, with the Battle Pass relic pulling ahead ever so slightly. The event disc at MLB is still superior to any C1 discs. For 4-star discs, Cage of Roses and Scorching Night's End are the ideal choices, with the latter being recommended due to being easier to upkeep. That's about it for this follow-up guide. I figured that the ultimate build needed a dedicated guide of its own because of how all the builds and whatnot change. But more importantly, I wanted to take time to implement burst windows properly into the calculator so we can get some solid numbers on just how strong the build is. It's a bit hard to tell otherwise because of how much the current ball splits is spoiling us. See you guys next time. Bye bye!
一緒に頑張りましょう。